Morgoth is the true Dark Lord of Middle-earth. He is the one responsible for the majority of evil that exists across the lands, and throughout his time in Arda, pretty much all evil beings and creatures that were around served him. In today's video, we will be covering the most powerful of these servants. Some you will definitely know of, but there may be some that a few of you have not heard of. Let's get into it.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
I have chosen to order this roughly by power, so we will begin with the weaker servants and move up to the most powerful. Let's start with Orcs. Morgoth's army was made up of many dark creatures. He used his army to make war on the Elves and men of Beleriand in the First Age. Just like Sauron, his main warriors were Orcs, who were the primary foot soldiers that made up the majority of the massive army he had under his control. The Orcs were bred by Melkor in mockery of the Elves sometime during the Great Darkness. How exactly he did this is actually a little unclear. He did not have the ability to create life, only to corrupt what already existed. It is unknown whether corrupted elves, men, or other creatures were used to achieve this. The true power of Orcs does not lie in their individual skill, but in their sheer number. In the First Age, hundreds of thousands of them were bred in Angband to be used in the wars of Beleriand. One of the biggest downfalls of these numerous warriors, however, is they have a tendency to spend as much time fighting with one another as they do fighting with men and elves. Moving on in the list of Morgoth's most powerful servants, we have Trolls. Melkor created Trolls before the First Age. They were very strong, and because of this, they weren't just used as simple warriors, but they were used to help build and carry machines of war. The biggest issue with these Trolls were they turned into stone in the sunlight. Not only that, but they were, well, stupid. During the wars of Beleriand, Gothmog, the Lord of the Balrogs, had a bodyguard of Trolls. During the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, in which Morgoth defeated the united armies of elves, men and dwarves, the great human warrior Húrin faced Gothmog's Trolls to protect the retreat of the Elven King Turgon. Morgoth's order to Gothmog to capture Húrin alive allowed Húrin to kill all of the Trolls single-handedly. And it's partly for this reason that Trolls weren't put higher on this list. Don't get me wrong, I certainly wouldn't want to fight one, but there have been a few instances throughout the history of Middle-earth where a mortal man or elf has taken down a single or even multiple Trolls. Many Trolls died in the War of Wrath, but some survived and of course were later recruited by Sauron for his wars. Next I want to talk about one you're likely to know little to nothing about: vampires. Now, I'll be straight with you from the start of this. There is practically no information on vampires in Middle-earth available. Tolkien didn't give us any details on them. It seems he may just have chosen the word vampire for its modern connotations of bat-associated creatures or monsters. A similar instance is with the word werewolf, used by Tolkien again to denote wolf-like creatures, otherwise possibly unrelated entirely to a traditional werewolf. However, in context of the word vampire, Sauron did assume the form of such a creature numerous times. On one occasion, he flew over the forests, dripping blood from his throat. Furthermore, the only actual named vampire, Thuringwethiel, as her name connotes, was a woman of shadow. They may have been fallen Maya, similar to balrogs, but we will never really know. We can assume, however, that these would be pretty dangerous, especially if a vampire was a form that Sauron would choose to take on occasion. Now, seeing as we just mentioned them in the previous section, let's talk about werewolves. Unlike werewolves of other literature, these did not transform from man into wolf at night, and their behaviour had no connection to the moon whatsoever. Therefore, the werewolves of Arda were not shapeshifters, and were always in the form of these great beasts. They were very similar to wolves and later wargs, but were as intelligent as man, meaning they were capable of negotiating and communicating with others. Karkaroth apparently had a venomous bite. It's unknown if this was a common trait of the species, or if it was just related to his status as the werewolf destined and designed to slay Juan. I don't want to expand too much on this story in particular, a tale from Beren and Luthien, but if you do want us to cover it, let us know in the comments down below. Okay, let's take this power scale up a notch. Balrogs. It's pretty common knowledge that the Balrogs were fallen Maya, those that were persuaded by Melkor to join his cause. In Arda, they took on the forms of fiery demons. It's pretty likely that Melkor actually used Balrogs as his personal bodyguards. At the time where Angolian attacked him, Melkor was, believe it or not, outmatched, and he let out a cry that brought the balrogs from their slumber. They drove Angolian away, which should tell you that, especially in number, balrogs are dangerous, and without a doubt, one of the more powerful servants of the Dark Lord. None of these were more powerful than Gothmog, the Lord of the Balrogs. He was a lieutenant in Morgoth's armies and pretty much had the same power in terms of control as Sauron, but we have a full video on him if you want the full details. Now let's talk about dragons. This is a pretty wide category because this can technically go from fire drakes and cold drakes all the way up to Ancalagon the Black. The origin of the dragons is somewhat a debated subject, though it's accepted that they were created by Morgoth in some sense. Not only were dragons big, powerful, and made of next to indestructible scales, but they were also fairly intelligent, making many of them extremely dangerous. We obviously see this with Smaug, and how easily he can basically defeat entire armies by himself just because he fancied himself some gold. But seeing as this is a video about Morgoth's most powerful servants, we may as well just talk about Ancalagon the Black. He was the largest winged dragon to ever exist in Middle-earth. Sadly, his time was limited to the War of Wrath, as that is where he made both his debut and his demise. But his entry to the battle sounds unimaginably epic. Facing final defeat, Morgoth unleashed his last and greatest weapon, a fleet of winged fire drakes led by Ancalagon. So terrible was their onslaught that the armies of the Valar were driven back from the gates of Angband, and their coming was said to have been accompanied by great thunder, lightning, and a tempest of fire. Despite only being around during the First Age, he was actually mentioned by Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. It has been said that dragonfire could melt and consume the Rings of Power, but there is not now any dragon left on Earth in which the old fire is hot enough, nor was there ever any dragon, not even Ancalagon the Black, who could have harmed the One Ring, the ruling ring, for that was made by Sauron himself. If you want to know more about dragons, we have a couple of videos on them that you can check out. Next we have the previously mentioned Ungoliant. I wasn't so sure whether or not to include Ungoliant because she isn't really a servant of Morgoth. She wasn't created by him and she did not serve his will. We know only that she came from darkness itself and was once an ally of Melkor. But because she worked with him, she was essentially doing what he wanted, whether or not she was doing it for her own motivations or not. I'm going to count it. If you need evidence on just how powerful Angolian is, just remember that Melkor sought out her help to attack Valinor and destroy the two trees. It's said that she was hesitant to join him because she feared the power of the Valar. All of them. Just think about that. Hesitated because she feared the Valar. Does that mean that she was more powerful than an individual member of the Valar? I would say yes. Considerably. Let's fast forward to after Ungoliant devoured the gems that Morgoth stole from Formenos, where she grew to an even more monstrous size. She then demanded that Morgoth surrender to her the Silmarils. However, Morgoth refused, and so she attacked him. Weaving her dark webs, she attempted to cover him in her nets and take the Silmarils by force. Morgoth then gave out a terrible cry of pain, which, as mentioned earlier, led to his balrogs coming to save him. So yeah, she took on one of the most powerful Valar by herself, so I would say it's safe to assume that she is one of the most dangerous and powerful beings, not only to serve or work for the Dark Lord, but to ever exist in all of Arda. Now, who could top this list above one of such power like Ungoliant? How about someone that almost conquered the entirety of Middle-earth after the fall of Morgoth? Sauron. Sauron's alliance with Morgoth is a strange one, because not only did he essentially idolize him, but also saw him as a way to further his own goals, as their ultimate ambitions were actually quite different. Sauron, initially going by Myron, saw in Melkor the will and power that would help him achieve his own goals and desires faster than if he pursued them by himself. However, while the rebel Valar wanted to either control or destroy Middle-earth, Myron's desire was to dominate the minds and wills of other creatures for what he perceived to be for their own benefit. To see his marvellous designs through, Myron sought to increase his innate power, so he was ensnared by Melkor, entering his following and soon becoming his main servant. After he allied himself with Morgoth, Myron maintained his appearance of being faithful to the Valar, but secretly fed Morgoth information about their dealings. It was only then when Morgoth established his strongholds in Middle-earth that Myron left Valinor and openly declared his allegiance, henceforth becoming a recognised foe of the Valar and the free peoples of Middle-earth. You will know the majority of the story from here, One more time, I don't want to be repeating information from previous videos over and over again, so we do have a pretty detailed video on Sauron that you can check out for a continuation of his story. Okay guys, that's pretty much it. Is there anyone I missed? Be sure to let me know who you would have included in the comments down below. Before we thank our patrons, I want to remind you once again that we have a new channel, The Batcave. The content is similar to what we do on this channel, but based purely on the characters from the Batman and DC universe. I would be absolutely over the moon if you guys would go and check it out, and if it's of any interest to you, subscribe. It would really help us out, and I would appreciate it so much. Okay, time has come as always to thank our patrons. A big shout out goes to the members of the 3 highest tiers: Kevin, Abram, Matt, Nashith, Denver Steel, Gregory, John and Andrew. We can't thank you all enough for the support towards this channel and our short film. If you're interested in supporting yourself, you can do so via our Patreon page. There's a variety of tiers on there that you can choose from. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more Middle-earth content, and please head over to the Batcave to show some support on our latest venture. Show what the Brohirrim can do. Again guys, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day. I hope you had a fantastic new year, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.